Get off the road!
All right. Hi, I'm Mike of Mike's Road Trip, and on this episode I feature Nova Scotia, which is Canada's ocean playground, with over 150 lighthouses, 5 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and some of the most scenic roads in the country. So come along with me, let me show you around. But first, a plug for my new book, Line Signs and Forks, Diary of a Nomadic Road Tripper, which can be found on Amazon or by visiting linesignsforks.com. My trip to Nova Scotia began in the capital city of Halifax, where my home base for a few days was the historic Weston, Nova Scotian, perfectly positioned within walking distance of the waterfront and downtown. The Halifax waterfront is chock full of activities. It was such a nice day that I really enjoyed just strolling the boardwalk, taking in the public art, street performers, and relaxing in these hammocks and getting a bit goofy posing for photos. I also visited the oldest farmers market in North America, which dates all the way back to 1750. Driving a bit beyond downtown. So I'm not quite sure why, but I've always been fascinated by cemeteries. And here in Halifax, this one has a pretty interesting past. This is the resting spot for a number of the Titanic passengers. And the gravesite is in the shape of a ship. So if you ever saw the movie Titanic, the character Jack Dawson was played by Leonardo DiCaprio. And when the movie came out, and every time there's a hit on the movie, so many people gravitate to this gravestone because they think that Jay Dawson was actually Jack Dawson. But in fact, this is John Dawson, not related, because the character in the movie was actually fictionalized. One of the most popular areas in all of Nova Scotia is Peggy's Cove and its lighthouse. Located about 30 miles southwest of Halifax, this idyllic village is utterly charming, and the photographic opportunities are boundless. An additional 60 miles southwest took me to the colorful community of Lunenburg, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This historic town is where the past meets the present. 70% of the original buildings are from the 18th and 19th centuries. And one evening I had dinner at the fabulous Five Fishermen restaurant, which has an interesting tie to the Titanic. At the beginning of the 20th century, the building was a funeral home where some of the victims were taken. After a few days in Halifax, I hit the road to explore some other areas of the province. Almost due north is Grand Prix, another UNESCO site that commemorates Acadian history, who settled this area in the late 17th century and who were persecuted and eventually deported from 1755 to 1762, many of whom ended up in New Orleans. Nova Scotia has a thriving wine industry, and one of the leading boutique wineries is just down the street from the UNESCO Grand Prix. This hilltop vineyard is beautifully manicured, producing a number of award-winning wines, both red and white varieties. The Grand Prix Winery is a wonderful place to soak up the setting and enjoy a tasting. Nearby in Howell's Harbour, I learned all about lobster. For starters, I had no idea they got this big. About 120 miles to the east is Pictou. Downtown Pictou is a charming little community with a fantastic museum that showcases the story of 18th century Scottish migration. So right now I'm in Pictou, which is the birthplace of New Scotland, also known as Nova Scotia. The ship behind me is a replica of the one that sailed here in 1773. It was pretty interesting exploring the Hector Pictou and seeing how the men survived at sea for such long periods of time. Farther east still, I headed toward Cape George, But before reaching there, I had heard about a boutique distillery where I had to try the maple flavor vodka. After a generously quick tour by Thomas, the master distiller, and of course a sample taste, I was off to see what would become my favorite lighthouse in all of Nova Scotia. The steep, curvy drive toward the lighthouse added to the anticipation to see what was around the next bend. When the reveal finally occurred, it did not disappoint. Unlike other lighthouses I encountered around the province, most were close to the shore. Cape George, on the other hand, was perched high up on a cliff, which I can imagine could be seen for miles in the night sky. My road trip continued southeast to Guysborough, where I would call it a night at Desbar's Manor. On a road trip, I really enjoy going off the beaten path, and Guysborough sure fits the bill. While I had to go down a long, windy dirt road to get here, what I found was some majestic coastal scenery, a shoreline trail where I found some wild apples, and also some really cool boutique inns to stay at. The eastern shore of Nova Scotia really came alive as I made my way southwest to Sherbrook. Well, sometimes my road trips take me back in time. Right now, I'm at Sherbrooke Village, which is a living history museum, and it's quite remarkable. Let's go have a look. Sherbrook is remarkable not just for the wonderfully preserved buildings, but visitors get a chance to see and learn how things were made back in the 19th century. Adding to the allure of Sherbrooke, everyone in the village wears clothing from the period. Of course, seeing the contrast between then and now is an incredible reminder of how far we've come. Strolling the streets really makes you feel like you've stepped back in time. Something else I found quite interesting was having my picture taken by an old Ambrotype camera, which is a process whereby the photo is taken on glass. By the way, I had to sit for this photo for over a minute until the exposure was finished. So yesterday, I stepped back in time, and today, I strolled down memory lane. Memory Lane is a heritage village located in Lake Charlotte. This authentic living history museum depicts coastal rural living in Nova Scotia during the 1940s. From farming, shipbuilding, to mowing the lawn. Oh boy, how I would love to own one of these old trucks. My road trip to Nova Scotia ended with an adrenaline rush as I rafted the Tidal Bore, an experience like none other, and can only be done at this one spot in Nova Scotia. Tidal Bore rafting takes advantage of a shift in tides within a narrow channel, filled in the middle by an extremely large sandbar. As the tide changes, a vast amount of water rushes into the channel and creates massive waves over the sandbar, in which the captains of Zodiac rafts then maneuver through, creating a thrilling ride for passengers. What a wonderful road trip I've had the past week here in Nova Scotia. From the scenic lighthouses, the majestic coastal roads, and of course, an amazing amount of fresh seafood. If you'd like to do a similar road trip, click the link below in the description box. And please, don't forget to subscribe for more road trip travel videos. Until next time, we'll see you on the road.
MyRoadTrip.com